there's this guy named Todd Allen who owns Stat Trucking.
And he never runs blocks or contracts on Amazon Relay?
I've always wondered why he doesn't do them, because a lot of people feel he's leaving money on the table.
So let's talk about Amazon blocks the way that they want you to see them. I mean, they see these as an opportunity for you to like have a full schedule, for you to get paid for all your deadhead mileage. No load board watching, you know, your schedule's already full. They've taken care of that. You basically get to start and stop at the same place, and it's guaranteed work. So I picked one. I know it's in Vegas. The reason I picked it is it's comparable to the rates that I see around here. I mean, occasionally they'll put one of these in San Diego, but typically this is about the rate that you see for a 37-hour block out of Ontario about this time of year. So you figure you're looking at that 1181 that it pays, and it's like, and then they say accessorials. Now, accessorials, some of these things are just going to be a wash. They're going to, you know, repay you for tolls that you paid, that type of stuff like that. You're not really making money. You're not really losing money. The jury's still out on whether or not they'll repay you for, you know, if you have to pay, let's say, you know, $15, $20 to park overnight. I don't know if they'll repay you for that or not. It's a question I kind of have pending with somebody right now. I don't have an answer for you on that. But then the other thing to keep in mind is this 42-cent per mile fuel surcharge. Now, I'll let the comment section prove me wrong. I believe the fuel surcharge right now is 42 cents. The last 3 years I've been working for them, it's ranged anywhere between 40 and 48 cents. I believe it's currently 42, but if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. If I'm off, it might be by like a penny or something like that. So, you know, the way that they want you to look at this is, okay, you got your 1181. They're probably gonna ask you to do about 350 miles a day, so 700 total miles at that 42 cent per mile fuel surcharge is going to add $2.94 to that. So you figure you're going to be walking out of a 37-hour block with about $14.75. So now let's compare that to how I view blocks. Again, this is just my personal opinion of them. I've been doing those IFTA quarterly filings long enough to know that my truck gets somewhere between 7.9 and 8.1 miles to the gallon, almost on the screws. So we're just going to call that 8 miles per gallon. Hauling Amazon loads. I keep looking down at a picture. I did math for this. So if I keep looking down, that's why. So basically 8 miles to the gallon. The last time I filled up my truck was actually the cheapest diesel I've ever seen in the state of California. I paid $4.35 a gallon for it. That's been closer to $5 a gallon. This is the closest I've ever seen it get to $4 a gallon in the time I've been doing it. So I mean, $4.35 feels like Christmas to me. But basically, $4.35, 8 miles to the gallon, it costs me 54 cents to drive my truck, to move my truck 1 mile down the road. Now, keep in mind, Amazon's fuel reimbursement rate, again, it's not meant to be, actually, reimbursement's a wrong term. It's their fuel surcharge. They're paying you back 42 cents. So if I'm paying 54 and they're repaying me 42, you could imagine that every mile they ask me to drive, I lose 12 cents. So, you know, you start looking at, you know, say I sign up for that block. 350 miles a day, 700 total miles, times 12 cents I lose for every mile. That's $84 that gets deducted from that original amount. So that original amount was $11.81. You take out 84 from that, that leaves me with $10.97. Divide that out over the 700 miles they asked me to run. That's $1.56 a mile. And keep in mind, this is a best case scenario. Here's what a lot of guys who are used to doing the load board, getting out there, you know, running and gunning, here's the mistake that they make. With the load board, you're making a mileage commitment to Amazon. You know, they say run 82 miles, you run 82 miles, you're done with it, it's done. With a block, you're making a time commitment. You finish early, you end up in a situation like this. Hey baby, what's going on? Man, I crushed it today. They said it was gonna take 13 hours. I got it done in 6. I'm feeling so good. I was gonna see if I could talk you into driving me over to Casa de Pico and getting some of those trash can sized margaritas, because I feel like getting f***ed up tonight. Hold on 1 second. What the hell? I'll tell you what, I'm gonna call you back. So what's happening here? Well, the magicians at ROC are like, hey, you know, you finished a 13-hour block in 6 hours. We still own you for 7 more hours. We can squeeze some more loads in here. And so in that time, I mean, let's just say hypothetically, they're like, you know, you're down in Otay. We got you for 7 more hours. Why don't you run up to Vista for us, do a round trip up to Vista, which is, 116 miles round trip. And then when you get back from that, go ahead and do a round trip up to Poway. That's, another 82 miles there. Now, that's at the end of day 1. Now, on day 2, you're convinced. You're like, I'm not making that mistake again. I'm going to take my time. I'm slowing this down a lot. And let's say on day 2, you get done your 13-hour block. You get done at like 10 hours thinking like there's no way they're going to add another load. And they're like, actually, we got you for 3 more hours. We could squeeze in another little Poway run. How about you do another little 82-mile round trip up to Poway? And again, you start adding up all that, those extra miles they've asked you to run. The 116 to Vista, the 2 trips to Poway, 82 miles apiece. Suddenly now your 700 miles that you initially signed up to run for or were anticipating running has now turned into 980 miles. Times that by 12 cents a mile I lose for every mile I drive my truck. Now I've lost $117.60 because I was efficient. You take that basically 117 out of that original payout of 1181, and all of a sudden now you're left with 1064. You divide that out over those 980 miles you just ran, and I just ran my truck for $1.08 a mile for 37 hours. So let's compare these blocks to what I do on the load board. Now, I intentionally picked my last 2 nights. A couple of reasons. One, they were exceptionally light nights. They were light nights because with my wife's work schedule, I have to be home sooner. And plus, I don't want to misrepresent this and go pick, I don't want to go have 2 huge nights, 2 outlier nights and compare it and make it look like the load board's so much better than blocks. I want to do it on 2 nights where I really didn't do a lot of work so that it's more of a fair comparison. So you start taking a look at like night number 1. And, I know the people always make the argument with the load board of like, oh, but you don't get paid for your deadhead. I'm glad you're thinking that because we're going to account for the deadhead here. So you figure night number 1, this first load, I left my house that night at 1 a.m. I did deadhead 27 miles from my yard down to Sand 3. It was 42 miles, $209. Now I ended at VCA 4. The next one started at SCA 4. It's actually the same place. They just have, they share, it's like, you can tell the acronym's close. VCA 4, SCA 4, it's the same thing. 0 deadhead between loads. Yeah, you're not getting paid for your deadhead miles, but with the load board, you're also in 100% control of your deadhead miles. So, the second load of the night, $180 for 42 miles. Puts me down there at Sand 3. I'm not even going to include the deadhead from Sand 3 to Sand 5. If you want to, it's 0.5 miles, but I'm going to say that's 0 deadhead to my next load, which paid me $300 on 56 miles. And then, let's see, that one ended at Sand 3, went back across the street to Sand 5, again, 0 deadhead. Final load of the night. That night, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I booked this, I actually, $212 for a round trip to Poway. I actually thought that this was going to get turned into a Tonu. I FAFO'd and I found out. It was actually a real load. I thought they'd posted it late in the day. They never post them that late. I thought it would be a Tonu and I got it wrong. But anyway, I went to Poway, round trip, 89 miles, $212, and then I did deadhead 27 miles from Otay back to my yard. Now that was the end of day 1. I left my house that day at 1 a.m. I was back home at 11 a.m. So gone for 10 hours. The next night, I left my house at 10:30. 27 miles of deadhead from my yard down to Sand 3. I got $204 on 2 miles. It was one of those move a couple trailers across the street. Always love getting those. That left me I was down by one of the sands. The next one was a Sand 5 up to Vista, paid $247 on 57 miles. Now here's where I did accrue some deadhead miles. My next load was down at one of the sands and I drove all the way from Vista, the same 57 miles I drove. I did deadhead back down to Otay to pick up that next load. And that last load was, Sand 5 to Sand 3. There was I think Dib 7 stop in the middle. $294 for 34 miles. That one was actually, I was threading a needle on that one because I needed to be home by 7:30 to take my kids to school, and you can see that it was booked out until, when was it booked out? Until 7:41. I checked out of Sand 3, let me screenshot this so I remember to include this later. I checked out of Sand 3 at 6:50 a.m. and I was home in time to take the kids at 7:31. So night 1 away from home for 10 hours, night 2 away from home for 9 hours. You add up the total on all that, it comes up to $16.49. Now, let's look at the mileage. I had 322 loaded miles. I accrued 165 miles of deadhead. That's 487 total miles. The truck's getting 8 miles to the gallon. That's 61 gallons of diesel burned. At $4.35 a gallon is $264 in diesel costs. I also want to be fair and include, because these are load board loads, every time I go down from my yard down to one of the sands, I hit that 125 toll road. I pay $5.50 each way. I did that 2 days in a row. It's $22 in tolls. So you add up the fuel cost, you add up the toll costs, that is my immediate costs come out to be about $286. So you take that $16.49 I made in those 2 very light nights, you subtract out the $286 and it comes out to $13.63. You divide that over the 487 miles, total miles, and everything, deadhead included, you divide that out over the 487, it comes out to $279 a mile. So doing the load board 2 light nights, 19 hours total time, sleeping in my bed in between those 2 nights, at my bed at home, $13.63. You compare that to the best case scenario there for blocks, it would have been $10.97. That's again with them not adding any trips. And that would have been 37 hours away from home, because though they guarantee you start and stop at the same place, that middle stop, where you take your 10-hour reset, could be and is more than likely going to be somewhere other than home. So I would have been sleeping in the truck somewhere. I would have been away from home for 37 hours. As it was, I was away for 10 one night and away for 9 the other, and pretty much home the rest of the time. And that is where I kind of bring up the idea of like block mentality, if you will. Obviously there's zero reward for efficiency. You're punished for it. You can see where you finish early, they start adding trips. You live in a state like California where the fuel surcharge is causing you to actually lose money. There's zero reward for being efficient. So obviously you're gonna curb that enthusiasm back a lot. That work ethic is gonna be a diminish. I mean, you're essentially working harder is punishing you in the end. It just doesn't make sense. So like if I were to run a block and I were to develop this block mentality, it's the type of thing where like if I showed up at a site and let's say I was not due at that site according to the schedule they gave me, and they said, oh, you're not due here for an hour, but I got there an hour early, you can bet that I'm pulling up down the street somewhere, letting my hair down, taking my shoes off, and I'm gonna sit there and watch Netflix until I've had my fill of it, and I will be showing up at that gate within 3 minutes of my scheduled arrival time. I am not getting there an hour early. There's no point in doing that. Let's say I pull into the yard and I'm scheduled to be in that yard for 2 hours before the trailer's gonna be ready, but they tell me at the gate, they're like, hey, we've got good news. The trailer's ready. You can go pick it up and go. Absolutely not. I'm gonna go post up in that yard somewhere and do the same thing. The shoes are coming off, the hair's coming down, I'm gonna watch Netflix. Now you might say, what if they call you? Because sometimes I've never done a block, but I've been on load board loads before, and like I'll get the notification in the app that says like, hey, the trailer's ready, and then like literally within 10 seconds, my phone's ringing, and it's like, this is ROC calling to let you know you gotta get out of the yard, yard congestion, go pick up your trailer, and it's like, I haven't even had time to crank up the truck yet. Like, you just told me the trailer's ready. Well, if I were on a block and they called me to tell me that it's like, hey, you need to exit the yard for yard congestion, you can bet that this is the kind of show I'd put on. Hello?
Hi, this is Kimberly with Amazon ROC. We see your trailer is ready at dock door 121 and are going to ask that you connect to it and exit the yard to reduce yard congestion.
Kimberly, I appreciate the call. Man, I got a condition going on right now. About 4 hours ago, I stopped and ate at one of those roadside tamale stands. The food was great, but unfortunately right now I am shitting like a chicken. I can't get more than like 10 steps away from a toilet without having to go again. And keep in mind with those steps, I can't take too wide of a step without any degree of confidence. I don't know if you're able to offer any like drug advice, but I have this stuff called loratadine, and it says it'll help with a runny nose. Do you have any idea, will it help with a runny butt?
I'm so sorry for bothering you, sir. Take your time in exiting the yard. There will be a survey at the end of the call.
The next thing I promise you is that truck will not see 56 miles an hour all day long, and I will finish my day no more than 15 minutes early. So what would it take for me to run blocks? I mean, obviously the rates would have to come up. I understand, I see the enticement of not having to watch the load board all day. I get that. And I'd be willing to give up a little bit of money to not have to put up with that. But as far as, you know, like when I say a little bit, I'm talking like 10, maybe 15%. When I see of like, you know, they're wanting me to take, you know, 30, 40, 50% less for not having to be inconvenienced by watching the load board, I'm a little bit sick. I actually kind of like watching the load board. I mean, it's kind of it's a fun little game for me. So, I mean, definitely the rates would have to come up. That fuel surcharge, I know that they do it on a nationwide basis. It might be a little bit more difficult for them, but I think it would kind of even the playing field a little bit more. I think that they need to look at that on like a region by region or state by state thing. I mean, it's crazy to think that, you know, me filling up my truck in California, every mile I drive on Amazon's fuel surcharge makes me lose 12 cents a mile. But if I filled up the same truck in Oklahoma, now every mile I move, I'm actually making money with their fuel surcharge. I think it comes down to about like, I'd be making 5 cents a mile as opposed to losing 12 cents a mile. So if they would, if they would like adjust that fuel surcharge somehow, you know, and make it more like state specific. I mean, you know, I love where I live. I'm not going to move, but like that fuel surcharge definitely needs to be reevaluated. And the last thing would be there needs to be some sort of like reward for efficiency. If you know, punishing somebody because they're able to do the work in half the time, and then punishing them by assigning them more work, taking essentially more money out of their pocket is just, I mean, I know that like people like to have that blue collar work ethic of like, yeah, I'll work hard, but like working hard to lose money isn't a good work ethic. It's just stupidity. I mean, it's just like you've got to do something to reward somebody. Like, hey, we've seen you finish the block early. We're gonna assign you this extra one, and we're gonna give you a bonus because you did such a good job or something like that. But to take away someone's money for working hard just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm going to end with this, and this is probably the most important thing I have to say. I'm not knocking guys who do blocks one bit. I fully am aware that I'm fortunate that I live in like a decent Amazon market. I know that there are some markets where one can do better with blocks than they can with the load board. And if that were true, if the load board dried up here in San Diego and blocks were a better option for me, you could bet your ass I'd be doing blocks. I mean, I'm not knocking doing the block. It's not the thing. It's like when given two choices, I'd hate for somebody to think that I'm coming across on some sort of superiority complex or some moral high ground of like, oh, blocks are beneath me. It's not that blocks are beneath me. It's just that I can outperform blocks with the load board, and I've been doing it consistently now for 3 years. So again, I don't say that to be cocky. I don't say that to talk down to you if you're doing blocks. I think each of us, I think every owner-operator owes it to themselves to go out and say, what is the most effective use of my time and equipment today? And if the answer to that is a block, then by all means do a block. But just want to be clear, my point of making this video is I get asked all the time, hey Todd, how come you don't do blocks? And I'm just giving my own personal reasons, hopefully with enough evidence that like, you know, justifies my answer a little bit. I appreciate you for watching. Take care.